I almost lost over $2,000 in a fraudulent check scam. These scammers target small business owners like me. Scam stories have been popping up everywhere these days, and I didn't expect to be the target of one last week. I wanted to share how I almost got scammed so you can learn how to identify the red flags to avoid being scammed yourselves. It started 2 weeks ago when I got an email asking if I was available to do some event photography. I replied to them and said, yes, I have that date and time available, and gave them a quote for $1,000. They came back to me with some information on the event, and honestly, it seemed like business as usual. I sent them the online invoice and contract with a web portal to make payments. But they said payment by check is the means of payment available right now, as the person handling payments prefer to do things the old-fashioned way due to some personal reasons. I was like, okay, sure, you do you. They said, we'll send you a tracking number once your check has been mailed. The next day is when it started getting a little sus. They said, there seems to have been a mix-up with payments sent to vendors working with us, because the sum that was owed to you was sent to another vendor who was also working on the project, while theirs was given to you. You only need to deposit the check, subtract your payment as agreed upon once it has cleared, and then we can deal with the discrepancy. Now, I'm torn. Part of me thinks that there's still a chance that this is a legitimate, interested client, and I want to make sure I'm being professional and accommodating. So I said, sure thing, we can get that resolved. 3 days later, I got a FedEx envelope with a check in it. I reached out to them to ask, do you want me to deposit this, and once it clears I can refund the difference, or I could just void the check and you could send me an updated check with the appropriate amount. They conveniently said, oh, the person who handled the payment has gone on a trip and it's out of reach, so go ahead and deposit it and we'll figure it out. Fine. I deposited it and said, I'll let you know once it clears. Of course, a day later, they texted me and were a little frantic saying, hey, did the funds deposit yet? I said, no, it's still on hold. They said, okay, is there like any way we can work something out, as the funds are needed before then to put things in place for the event? Basically, they're asking me to send them $2,200 back before the check had even cleared on my end. And this is where I was done being the nice guy. I said, listen, the funds haven't cleared yet, so they're still in your account. I can't authorize a refund until the check clears into my account. And I haven't even gotten the signed contract from you yet. I woke up the next morning and unsurprisingly, I got a message from my bank saying that the check bounced because it was fake. I sent the scammer one last text letting them know that the check had bounced just to see what they'd say, and as I suspected, no response. This type of scam isn't anything new. It's known as check fraud. It almost always involves receiving a genuine looking check or cashier's check, and either they'll ask you for the goods ahead of time before the check clears, or in this case, send you too much money and ask you to wire them back the difference. They might give you a story that you'd be sympathetic to. In my case, it was lucky that my bank put a hold on the deposit attempt. In other cases, the bank might make the full amount available in one business day because of federal laws, just to determine it was fraudulent and remove the funds from your account, potentially days or weeks after you thought the check had cleared and you've already wired the difference back to the scammer. I reached out to one of my friends, Jonathan, another photographer and videographer in the Tampa Bay area, and not only has he dealt with these kinds of scams before, but he also got the exact same inquiry from the same person trying to scam him too. As someone with an accounting degree and auditing background, professional skepticism, aka trust but verify, is something that's second nature to me. I was skeptical by the second or third email, so part of me thought this whole interaction was kind of funny. But the other half of me is pretty pissed off because it's honestly an elaborate scam that can genuinely rip off hardworking individuals. The scammer provided a bunch of legit sounding details up front, like the date, time, location, number of guests, planned activities, all the stuff they'd want me to capture, how they don't need videography, just photography, and how they might want an album afterwards, leading you to believe not only is it a genuine inquiry, but also one that might include recurring business with this individual. Someone who's just started a small business, like a student who started doing photography and videography in college like I did, might ignore the red flags because, hey, they're finally getting paid and booking more shoots, and they're much more amenable to weird situations, just to be screwed over by some asshole scammer. So here are 5 red flags to look out for in case something like this happens to you. 1. Unusual payment method. If the person insists on using a check or cashier's check instead of more secure methods like wire transfer or a reputable online payment platform, that typically makes me a bit skeptical because I normally accept all of my payments through my online payment portal, and rarely do I accept a check mailed to me from a client that I've never met in person. 2. Overpayment. Beware if the payment is larger than the agreed upon amount and the sender asks you to refund the difference. The weirdest thing I noticed in this situation was that they could have just issued a new correct check for the correct lower amount instead of asking if I, a random vendor they've never worked with before, would send the overpayment back. That's either a scam or a very trusting person. 3. Pressure to act quickly. Scammers often try to pressure you into depositing the check and sending the excess funds back to them quickly before the bank can identify if a check is fraudulent. 4. Poor communication. Check the grammar, spelling, or tone of the messages or emails. Poor English doesn't necessarily mean that they're a scammer, but in this situation, it definitely stood out to me. On top of that, they weren't even willing to get on a phone call. 5. No verifiable contact information. If you're unfamiliar with the client, you could always do a quick Google search of their contact info to see if you can find their LinkedIn, social media presence, or their website to confirm whether it's even a real person. Or in my case, you can call the venue that's supposedly hosting the event to verify if it's even happening. The reason why these scams have been around for years is because they work. If my bank didn't put a hold on my account, this could have gone differently. But what genuinely bothers me the most is when I think about all of the small businesses that this could affect. Worst of all, scammers will only get more and more sophisticated as time goes on. So the takeaway from this video is that I want to encourage everyone to have some healthy skepticism. And if you have any friends that own a small business that you think should be aware of these kinds of scams, share this video with them. Anyways, I hope this video was entertaining and educational. Let me know in the comments down below on some scams you've caught before or have heard about lately. And as always, I'll see you in the next video. Peace.